Good morning. We apologize for not being able to attend in person, but hopefully the presentation that we provide to you will be exciting virtually. So we're going to start. Back in 2018, Walmart brought together a team of design professionals to reimagine their home office. In one of their first meetings that we had with them, they passed out a book by Sam Walton called Made in America. They asked us to read it to get an idea, an understanding of their values and their principles and how he led his company. In those early meetings, we learned some new terminology with Walmart, words like EDLP, everyday low price, and EDLC, everyday low cost. We got to drill into their values and their principles. They taught us their process of evaluating using good, better, best. That process wasn't to determine low cost or savings. It was to enhance experience with a better price. For this campus, we really took that to heart. And we tried to implement as many of their values, as many of their processes into our design. Over the next 40 minutes or so, we're going to give you a glimpse of just a couple of the design elements that we incorporated into the Walmart home office campus. And we believe that these items check all the boxes that meet their sustainability goals, which focuses on climate and nature, waste, and people. I'm going to reintroduce ourselves again because it's part of what we practice. So my name is Ted Vuong. I am the managing director for the Houston office for Walter B. Moore, and I'm also the engineer of record for the Walmart home office project. With me today is Jana, who is my partner on the project. Jana?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you all for inviting us to be with you today. So my name is Jana Wehby, and I'm a landscape architect and associate principal with SWA in our Los Angeles office. And just like Ted, we've been collaborating on this project back since master planning, and my office is doing the landscape architecture for the new home office campus. And it's been a great project. Thank you.
The agenda today we're going to discuss is we're going to introduce you to our theme, Big Nature. We're going to give you a quick overview of the existing campus. We're going to discuss with you our water story, walk you through the drainage concept and kind of how we quantified the lid impacts for the campus.
So we'll start with our guiding concept. Big Nature is a theory within landscape architecture that asks us to redefine our relationship to nature, to look beyond aesthetics to the functional impact of our decisions on the future. So the Big Nature approach to Walmart's new home office looks to the natural systems that currently surround the campus and the remnants that are still there within it. And we imagine what the site may have been like before it was built upon. So the smaller image you see there on the left shows the conditions that we started with on the project. And the other image is a representation of what we think the site may have looked like before it was ever developed. And we know that we're not going back to the way it once was, but we look for the ways that natural systems can strengthen the performance of the site as a sustainable office campus. Building on that previous image, we took inspiration from the regional landscapes around Northwest Arkansas and overlaid various ecologies and geologic features onto the new campus site. We envisioned the landscape characters for creeks along the drainage patterns, glades at the site's high points, and forest and meadows in the spaces in between. And in this way, we can define the character of the landscape as it relates to its ecological performance.
One of the things the existing campus did, through its urban development, it severed itself from the ecological systems. And what we're trying to do here is reconnect the campus, this new campus, back to the ecology that surrounds the campus today. Sorry. So the existing campus is located in Bentonville. It's approximately 350 acres in size. It's bounded by the East Central to the north, 14th Street to the south, J Street to the west, and MLK and Moberly to the east. The campus is urban in nature with urban landscape and drainage.
This group of photos shows a sample of the sheet metal warehouses and expansive parking lots, little pockets of turf grass and trees that dominated the Walmart home office campus site at the start of the project. The easiest and most comfortable way of traveling around the campus at that time was by vehicle, because sidewalks where they existed were often unshaded and not very comfortable to use. There were few amenities to support associates' well-being and really didn't provide much connection with the natural environment. Here we see that the home office campus sits at the upper reaches of two watersheds, Little Sugar Creek and Osage Creek, Illinois River. Town Branch Creek and Shoemaker Creek, with headwaters in the northern half of campus, flow through Bentonville to Little Sugar Creek. A tributary to Osage Creek originates near 8th Street, and it drains through the southern portion of the campus. This natural flow of water establishes the ecological threads that connect the home office campus with its regional landscape. Drainage on this site generally follows the natural watersheds, but the land has been engineered to accommodate development. The primary high point is centrally located just south of 8th Street and west of P Street. Two notable low points correspond with the creeks, one at J Street and Town Branch Creek, and the other at the southwest corner of the campus. Designing the campus to complement the existing topographical high and low points respects the natural systems and results in a cost-effective approach to grading the site.
Illustrated in the existing on the existing campus here on the slide are the existing drainage areas that and areas that drain to the creeks that Jana just mentioned. To the north and northeast, this area of the campus drains to Shoemaker Creek. To the west, Town Branch Creek, and to the south, Osage Creek.
And this area, excuse me, this aerial view also very clearly illustrates the extent of impermeable surfaces across the campus with all of the large warehouses and the extensive parking lots. And these contributed to some stormwater problems on the site.
So the previous campus handled detention and drainage in a piecemeal fashion across the two watersheds. For this watershed, Town Branch Creek, there was about 3 acre-feet of detention, all distributed through the site, around the buildings, within the parking lots, adjacent to roadways. It outfalled into Town Branch Creek under J Street through a series of 5 box culverts or round culverts. Our goal was to maintain the overall drainage pattern here, but to consolidate the detention and outfalls while keeping some of the upstream distributed stormwater management features intact. On the south side, we had about 20 acres of detention provided intentionally. As we studied and learned more about the campus, we quickly discovered that there was an additional 24 acres being detained on the south portion of the campus due to the restriction underneath 14th Street, the 2 box culverts that you see there highlighted in red. There's also a substantial berm that is on the north side of the 14th that kind of held water intact. So we had, now we're dealing with 42 acre-feet of detention. In addition, if you notice the 2 neighborhoods east and west of the campus, both those neighborhoods drain through the campus. And they drain through the campus in through a wetland and through kind of a central corridor. The central corridor became a very important feature, and we focus on that in our infrastructure conveyance. So as I said earlier, the campus, or Jana said earlier, the campus is highly impervious. It was highly engineered with a lot of rectangular and concrete drainage structures. Our conversations with Walmart and our observations on the site, we noticed that the campus flooded really quickly, especially during these flash floodings and even in smaller storm events. We saw a lot of flooding onto campus, a lot of water coming out of the drainage areas onto the parking lots, across the parking lots. People getting in and out of their cars, walking around the campus, constantly had wet feet. We also noticed a heavy amount of erosion and lack of stormwater quality, which can be seen in Town Branch Creek today along the Razorback Greenway. It can also be seen going further down Town Branch Creek towards Crystal Bridges. And if you cross 14th, there's quite a bit of erosion happening on the Osage Creek side.
So another part of our review of existing conditions included an assessment of existing trees on the site. Although the tree canopy coverage wasn't very expansive, a portion of these trees are significant in size, and they provide stormwater benefits as well as for air quality and property value and energy savings. So preservation of significant and healthy existing trees, when feasible, contributes to a sense of place, provides opportunities for associates to connect with nature, and offers tangible benefits that take decades really to achieve. So for these reasons, we documented trees on the campus that had a diameter breast height of at least 12 inches, and we made recommendations for trees that could be suitable to protect in place or relocate within the campus.
As we looked at the lid and sustainability, the water story, and how to tell the water story, it became more and more important on how we needed to protect this resource. We know that the premise of low impact development is to replicate natural systems and manage precipitation on site. The goals, the stormwater management goals for the campus were basically narrowed down to about 6 goals. Retain and treat the first flush of water, that's the first ½ inch of rainfall. Mimic pre-development hydrology. Improve on-site capture and reuse, evapotranspiration, and biofiltration, improve water retention capacity and the infiltration of rates of soils, discharge our water at rates consistent with natural rate of erosion for the receiving channels, and most of all, reduce infrastructure and reduce maintenance required to maintain these BMPs.
And in keeping with our big nature concept, it has been important to us to design stormwater systems in a way that connects Walmart associates and visitors to the natural environment. So our approach focuses on designing and maintaining stormwater features as natural ecosystems that are an integral part of the campus experience, and also mimicking the natural hydrology of historic local landscapes and how the stormwater is moved through and stored on the campus. The campus landscape has also been designed with the opportunity for Walmart to collaborate with artists to integrate site-specific installations within the setting of stormwater systems. So that provides another level of engagement with visitors and associates on the campus. So the goals we set in developing our water story have informed our design of the campus drainage concept and its key components.
So drawing upon existing topography and drainage conditions of the site, we identified primary paths of flow for the stormwater across the campus. We worked very closely with the architects and the owner to site the buildings on the campus and site the site features to not disrupt these drainage patterns and paths. We utilized bioswales for overland flow and connected them to pipe where necessary. Given the campus location and the boundary and its boundary to 2 watersheds, we directed the stormwater north and south to the 2 lake systems to reuse the stormwater for the irrigation system. The expression of the drainage system as a network of bioswales connected to 2 lakes highlight the system as a connected series of natural amenities that clean the water runoff before it leaves the campus and continues through the waterways.
We also took the opportunity to develop the campus drainage system as a multi-purpose corridor, developing an active transportation and recreation amenity at the same time, and tying the campus into the existing network of bike trails throughout Bentonville. So the green line that you see there in the middle of the diagram represents the primary drainage swale that conveys water to the North and South lakes. And it will also accommodate an extension of the Razorback Greenway Trail through the heart of the campus. It connects to the existing Town Branch Trail with a tunnel under J Street, and then it'll connect to the South Bentonville Trail to the south with a tunnel under 14th Street. This here is the vision of that Greenway Trail in the heart of the campus. Elevation changes between it and the adjacent office areas are handled with gabion retaining walls and slopes no greater than 3:1 to minimize erosion. We'll have mixed shrub, perennial, and tall grass plantings. Most of these are native, and these will visually enhance the setting, but also stabilize the soils and reduce stormwater velocities and contaminants.
So as Jana said, this greenway will connect 14th all the way back up to J. Once you get on this trail, it's an unimpeded route through the campus. But that's just one nice thing about this trail. The real working portion of this trail is what it does for stormwater. It conveys approximately 200 acres of the 350 acres of runoff from the campus. The bioswale itself, this portion here, called right here, it's designed for the 25 years. So it will retain and convey the 25-year storm from the campus to the North and South Lake. The trail, the bioswale and the trail itself will handle the 100-year storm, meaning it will convey and retain the 100-year storm, taking it to the North and South Lake. And the great thing about this is we anticipate less than a foot of water to be on this trail system during that 100-year storm event. So you're not going to see the erosion, you're not going to see the disruption that you would normally see in a water system of this magnitude. So to create a system that mimics natural processes and protects the lakes and downstream tributaries, we wanted to make sure that all paved areas drain to bioswales and biofiltration. We wanted to make sure every drop of water was continuously disrupted on the campus. We wanted to increase atomic concentration. We wanted to temporarily hold water at each of these locations, the local locations where the water is collected. We wanted to treat the water, and then we want to do something that is typically not done unless you have elevation. That's polish the water. So as elevation changes through the site and we drop water from one elevation to another, that water gets polished, TSS gets settled out and makes its way down to the lake as really, really clean water. But, again, once at the lake, the lake becomes a BMP also. We designed the lakes for the inlet and the outlet to be as far apart as possible, the maximum distance that we could do with the lakes, which will allow for the maximum amount of settling in the lakes before being released to Town Branch Creek and Osage Creek. So the first collection system on the campus is a series of bioswales adjacent to streets and parking lots. These bioswales represent the first line of defense, the upstream treatment network for the campus. The water enters into each of these bioswales through curb breaks. The side slopes of the bioswales act as filter strips. The bioswale velocities are slowed, allowing TSS settlement. And at the end of each bioswale, we filter the water through a focal point biomedia. The Greenway is our secondary treatment, our midstream treatment. The Greenway is actually our workhorse for the campus. Like I said, it takes about 60% of the campus, approximately 200 acres of runoff run through this Greenway. It collects all the bioswales from the roads and from the campus system, the campus LID systems, and then conveys them to the North and South Lake. The use of the Greenway actually helps us with surface flooding. It takes all the runoff, puts it in a man-made lake, a man-made vegetated stream. The downstream system The crown jewel of the campus, which is the lakes, either the North Lake or the South Lake, are working lakes. They mitigate downstream flooding. They provide additional water quality. And best of all, they harvest all rainfall, all the water that ends up that's developed on site, and they also collect all the condensate water from all the buildings on the campus. These lakes are also the campus amenity. They have hiking and biking trails. They have wonderful and beautiful views and outlooks. Below the surface of the water, aquatic planting is designed to help further remove pollutants and guard against fight against algae blooms. In our implementation of LID, we try to remove as much of the traditional infrastructure design as possible and replace it with more sustainable design concepts. The typical gray infrastructure design of installing a pipe network, a curb inlet, collecting water as fast as you can, and conveying it to its outfall. We abandoned that. With each of the quads on the campus, they each had different challenges. And so what we try to do is we tried to standardize the concepts that we wanted to use for the campus. And those standardized concepts ended up being all impervious areas drained to landscape, providing temporary storage to allow infiltration and increased time of concentration at each area of collection.
The office quad areas of the campus are designed to support campus workplace activity. We have a series of open lawns, which you see represented on the right side of this image, and then paved pedestrian and bike promenades and paths seen on the left side here. And as Ted just described, these functional outdoor spaces drain to a system of bioswales, which are planted with shrubs and grasses to improve the treatment of the stormwater and also to provide that sense of nature throughout the full campus workplace setting.
Yeah, what's really important here is we worked hand in hand with Jana's team to standardize these concepts for the campus. By standardizing these concepts, it allowed us to reduce the impervious of the site, and which led to reduction in storm runoff. The reductions allowed the proposed conditions to mimic the pre-developed conditions. But throughout the campus, surface lots and drives, they're necessary. We need them to provide access to employees and visitors. But we also use them to our benefit. We use them to buffer existing trees and protect the trees. We use them to reduce infrastructure and visibility by designing bioswales within the medians of each of these surface lots. The bioswales acted as a planting buffer, provide additional storage and stormwater ponding, which allowed us to reduce the inlets, the number of inlets within the parking lot, actually removing all the inlets in the parking lot and placing them in the bioswales. In addition, it allowed us again to reduce the size of the storm. This exhibit here shows the bioswale locations where proposed focal points were designed to allow storage and increase stormwater infiltration. Each of the bioswales are accompanied by landscape inlets in which we intentionally reduce the size of those inlets so we could store or pond water on top of those inlets.
This shows here a view of one of the bioswales. This example is along Southeast P Street, which was one of the private connector streets within the campus. Bioswales with the check dams and focal point media help to clean and convey stormwater from the streets through to the greenway and the lakes, as Ted's described. And we're also providing extensive tree plantings and understory plants within these bioswales, which of course provide the stormwater benefits, but also help to provide a buffer between pedestrians and bicyclists that are using shared use sidewalks from the traffic along the streets.
In addition to the zones, bioswales were added to the roadways around the campus. One of the main goals of implementing, as I mentioned earlier, was we were trying to reduce pipe size and infrastructure costs. looking, hopefully you can read this this exhibit. It's a little small, but we analyzed each drainage section. We looked at the area, we looked at the velocities, we looked at the required pipe size for a traditional design, and then I turned around and looked at for overland flow and what we could do with that overland flow and reducing those velocities and increasing those time of concentrations to increase or decrease pipe sizes. Our team worked iteratively with the biomedia manufacturer. We took each section, understood the drainage area, and right-sized the biomedia filtration required. The roadside swales are rather small in size, so we had to really work to get the proper size. And we really tried to get a kind of a postage stamp size bioswale with or filtration footprint within each of these swales, and we ended up at around 20 square feet for each bioswale section.
And we also coordinated the planting for these swales to select species that are tolerant of the seasonal inundation and the unique drainage characteristics of the biomedia. And we also were selecting plants that were in keeping with the big nature concept of creating a native landscape character for the campus.
So we ran into some grade challenges. There's quite a bit of grade change on the campus. Where we had significant grade change, we had to implement these Gabion check dams to kind of slow down the water and even hold water back to get that, to increase the time of concentration, get that resident ponding. Water is drained from the street into the bioswales through curb inlets. And this lid development that we use allowed us to really remove a lot of infrastructure that you normally see on the streets, things like curb inlets, manholes, those large type A inlets that you see adjacent to the streets, the large E inlets with the large 4 openings on either side. We removed all that type of infrastructure and really cleaned up the roads where what you see is the landscape, the beautification of the site, and you don't see how that works for you. So quantifying the lid impacts. We do a lot of calculations to quantify lid impacts because we want to make sure the owner understands, what they're getting when they go away from traditional gray infrastructure to more sustainable site. And a lot of owners don't understand that. They hear the stories that, well, lid costs more, being sustainable costs more, and it really doesn't. It's actually quite a large savings that we were able to impact the site with. So one of the things we looked at was length of bioswale versus pipe. A great example of that was the Green Groove. We were able to save about 3,000 linear feet of large diameter. And when I say large diameter, it's 48 inches and above. So 48 inches was the starting point originally, and it went all the way up to 72 and 84-inch pipe by the time we got down to the campus with, if you can imagine, 200 acres draining to the greenway. So not only did we save that pipe, we also created an amenity for the campus and the public. Providing biomedia and versus allowing pollutants to get to the lake. Doing this avoided, the unsightly, the oil and grease sheens that you see on lakes when they do collect roadside ditches and storm from roads. In doing and also providing for the biomedia, we reduced the algae blooms, the occurrences of algae blooms. And we created a easier form of maintenance. They're maintaining these surface features, these bioswales along the road versus trying to maintain a lake. So reduction of maintenance was also a benefit. Providing localized detention and increased time of concentrations versus pipe drainage. Doing this, again, I've mentioned this already, but we were able to reduce the multiple pipe sizes for the storm sewer infrastructure on the campus. And the thing that we found out and noticed almost right off the bat was we were able to reduce the larger pipes we saw a greater reduction, sometimes 2 and 3 pipe sizes. And you can tell if you can understand 84-inch pipe coming down to a 60-inch, that's a huge amount of savings. The use of vegetated soils versus pipe, we just didn't try to shoehorn a swale or a bioswale everywhere on the campus. Some places it didn't make sense, and where it did make sense, we relied on the system, the upstream, the midstream, the downstream. Our goal was to make sure that every drop of water ran through at least 2 of these systems. So if they missed the upfront system because we could not get a swale or we had to go to a pipe system, we made sure that it outfalled into the midstream and was able to be conveyed through that midstream system down to the lake, and then let the lake do its part. Or if we missed the midstream, we wanted to make sure we hit the upstream. So at least two treatment systems before getting to the lake. I'm sorry, before actually outfalling to Osage or Town Branch Creek. Here is a representation of the infiltration at the end of the bioswales. Each of the bioswales has a small underground storage tank with void spaces with high filtration soil on top of it. We graded and drained the entire site to these areas. Soil layers over the focal point cells provided filtration for stormwater entering the underground system. Having this filtration system having the filtration system on top of the swale or at the swale surface allow for easier access and maintenance. Overflow was also near the focal point. Like I said, we allowed for the extreme event. We provide a second access point to the infrastructure system here to allow the larger rainfall events, anything over a 25-year rainfall event, or if this area ended up getting clogged. The proposed planning that was chosen by SWA really paid dividends when we're dealing with the bioswales. It works to reduce the velocity of stormwater through the bioswale. In areas where erosion was concerned due to the steepness of the grade, we designed gabion check dams, not only to slow that flow, but to also allow water to back up behind kind of that resident holding of the water, temporary ponding. A stone layer was used at the bottom of the swales to also provide additional velocity control and filtration. And then the trees planted on the side slopes of the bioswales, not only there for the beautification of the design, but also there to disrupt flow. And again, all about controlling velocity in the bioswale, kind of reducing that velocity down to allow for TSS removal. And then again, at the end of the bioswale, the infiltration to further remove pollutants.
So Ted was talking about the reduction of the infrastructure and mentioning about the pipes and replacing a lot of that traditional type of infrastructure with the planting. But another really big driving force in the design is being very mindful in terms of the amount of paving and impervious surfaces and really focusing it to where it's needed to support the campus function, and then utilizing as much space as possible for plantings. So currently we have about 45% of the developed campus area dedicated to planting. And this design also focuses on the approach of bringing in the native and adapted plantings as much as possible. So previously, most of the planting on the campus was turf grass, and now we have just around 6% is all that we have in the planting areas for turf. And the remainder will be a mix of shrubs and perennials and grasses. And then over 50% of the planting area will be native meadow planting. So this planting strategy is intended to slow the stormwater velocities, clean the water, stabilize the soils, also support pollinator populations, and provide lower maintenance. So we'll have less mowing and fertilizing. And the irrigation for all this planting is sourced from the stormwater that's held on site in the lake system. In regards to the tree canopy across the campus, if we were to look back to how the site may have been before development, we might expect to have somewhere around 200 trees per acre in forested areas and anywhere from 15 to 50 trees per acre in meadows. At the start of the project, the campus had on average about 8 trees per acre. So another big component of the design is bringing back that forested canopy as much as possible on the campus. And it's been an ongoing collaboration and coordination with the builds and the architecture, all the utilities, electric lines, communication lines underground, site lighting across the site. So we have to coordinate trees with all of these elements. And we'll be providing it at this point in time, our number is about 5,398 new trees on the campus. And that brings us up to an average density of around 48 trees per acre. And this campus forest will also include those existing trees I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. So we're preserving around 35 trees within the developed area of the campus and protected in place. The diagram on the right-hand side, I know it's a little bit small, but the kind of solid green circles you see are those trees that are being protected in place. And then we have an additional 20 existing trees that will be saved and then relocated to new locations on the campus. So those are kind of those pink lines you see going across, with the blue circles indicating where trees have been living their whole lives up until this point of time. And then the orange circles are showing we'll be relocating them on the new campus site. And on the left side is an example of some of these trees. That smaller top left image is a really large, beautiful American elm tree that's been growing near J Street, kind of between 10th and 8th. And this tree has been relocated. So the other image you see is after it's been excavated and moved down to a temporary staging location where it will be safe during construction. And you see it there with some large pine trees that are being protected in place on the campus. And then after construction activities happen in the main campus office areas, that large elm tree will be brought back up kind of close to where it was, but in the central area of the campus. So one of the ways that we can support the case for investing in existing mature trees is by quantifying the benefits that they provide in comparison to planting smaller new trees. We use this online tree benefit calculator to assess the existing American elm tree that we saw in that previous slide and to understand the magnitude of the benefits that it provides. So as you can see here, its ability to intercept stormwater is about 10 times greater than a smaller tree of the same species. So that brings us to the end here. And the Big Nature Campus design considers these natural systems, hydrology, trees, and understory as a fundamental component of Walmart's approach for this new home office campus. It's true to the company's roots and to the surrounding community.
Yeah, Big Nature also required us to take an integral project team approach between the site engineering, the landscape architecture, and the owner. From the beginning of the master planning through final construction documents, the collaboration, the flow of ideas, the Walmart evaluation process allowed us to implement the owner's vision, the principles, and the principles to deliver a world-class campus to their associates. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted and Jana. Questions from the audience? Yes, Stephen.
First, I'd like to congratulate you on a beautiful design. Little familiar with the campus, and I was curious if there was any consideration, because I know some areas have very high levels of subsurface water, not to mention a lot of the stormwater runoff, but in some of the lower areas where hydrologic pressure would push up on the bottom of some of the buildings and cause damage, and with all the impervious pavement they had with rooftops and parking lots, there was still always a little bit, you didn't have to go very far to get to some of your subsurface water. So was there any special considerations as you laid out the design of how you would maintain that or deal with that if there was ever an issue?
Yeah, so the subsurface water was an issue in design, but what we found was it seemed to be perched water without a whole lot of hydrological or hydrostatic head on it. I'm not sure how the structural engineers handle that, but we at the beginning of the project we really wanted to try to tap into that water and use that water, bring it down to the lakes as a source of water for the campus, and we must have drilled, I want to say, 400 to 500 bores on the campus, and it just wasn't consistent enough, and we could not get that horizontal movement of water down to the lake to really recapture it. From what I understand of the structural design, the foundations, a lot of them were the foundations, drill pier foundations and geopier foundations that went down to the rock surface. So I think that's the way they mitigated those pockets of water. But like I said, I don't believe there was a lot of head or a lot of uplift on those pockets of water, and it had I don't believe it had a big impact to the buildings. But it was unfortunate that we were not able to tap into that water and use it.
Other questions? Maybe one from me. I believe you had about 6.5 acres of turf on this site, and turf in Northwest Arkansas is very popular in a lot of design work that's being done. It's 2% of, I think, all land in the U.S. Did you all use any practices or anything around soils management on site for that turf to improve infiltration in this project?
Yes, we are specifying improved soils for the planting areas, and then in particular some of the large turf areas that will be high activity zones. We are providing subsurface drainage systems so that after rain falls, the soils will drain, and Walmart will be able to get out and be using those spaces quickly.
Great. Yes. Hi, Lee.
Hello. My name's Lee with Ozark Green Roofs, and my question's less about stormwater and more about the design, about access. The greenway is going through the site, so that makes it feel public, but I feel like it's also a private site, and so I was wondering about your thoughts about design there, and where does the public end and the private begin? Thanks.
That's a really good question, and it's been a point of discussion and conversation throughout the design process. And if you remember the slide where we had the perspective rendering in the section graphics, something that we've done is really utilize that grade change to provide that sense of separation, so that, of course, it provides the stormwater function of getting the drainage where it needs to go, but it has the dual benefit of having, there we go, yeah. So while you're in the Greenway Trail, you feel like you're in a confined space, and you'll catch glimpses of the campus beyond the trees, but it's clear that it's a separate space. We have the tunnel connections, which also kind of provide that gateway and sense of entry, so that it's anyone who's using the trail passes under the tunnel. It's kind of that threshold to give you that sense of separation. And there are some paths that connect, because we didn't want this trail to be dividing the campus, right? So we still want the campus to feel cohesive from east to west. So we do have some small paths that allow associates to commute on the Greenway Trail and then take a path and get into their office space. But they are designed in a way where it doesn't feel like a primary path, so that a typical recreational or public user on the path will continue down the main path and not get lost, so to speak, through the campus.
Ted, I think this question's for you, but did you see any opportunity redirecting flow paths or anything? I saw Town Branch and the lake to the south were kind of, connected through the greenway, but when that high point comes, I couldn't see it, but was there opportunity to redirect some of that flow to a better area, the bigger lakes to the south? Or I know we don't want to change drainage paths too much, but didn't know if that was a unique design for this project.
Yeah, we did redirect some of the flow, and unfortunately, we weren't able to redirect a lot of it just because of the elevations on the site, being that one of the high points was approximately here. We had a very low point here, which we really wanted to get back down to the South Lake, but because of J Street and because of the elevation of the site being about 15, 17 feet lower than the high point, we had a really difficult time trying to get it back to the South Lake without providing a lot of larger pipe to do that. The intent was to get everything to the greenway, as you can see here, and then allow the greenway to do its work and move that water to the North and South Lake with the reduction of pipes. One area that we really wanted to capture was this northeast area to redirect that water away from Shoemaker Creek and be able to capture that developed flow for the campus. But again, because of this kind of ridge line that went through the campus, we could not get that water back over and make use of it without, a lot of really expensive doing a lot of really expensive things like balancing pipes and things like that. So, or 100-year pipes to move that flow from one watershed to the other.
Stephen.
Question. Y'all are obviously investing a lot in the stormwater infrastructure of the site and trying to manage your water well. Have you done any kind of baseline monitoring or assessments at your discharge points today? And would there then be plans to kind of check your impact or the effectiveness of what you've done there on the site going forward? It would be nice to have that information, for the area with something of this scale.
Yeah, so we have done, CEI, local engineer in Bentonville, has provided us some local metrics for what has been happening on the site previously. And then we are implementing, I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with Opti system. It's a smart rainfall management system. It will be a series, a weir system at the, sorry, I'm trying to look over my iPad to the screen. It's a weir system, gate system that will work with weather patterns and to pre-release water or even hold back water, even more water in lower storm events. So we're not going to be releasing water at the typical rate or the local code rate. We're actually storing more and releasing less. And the intention of doing that is to be able to have more water on the campus to use, and also to be to improve the downstream conditions, because the campus is at the upstream. We're first, and so everything we release, we're at the top of the system. So we're mindful of that. We want to be aware of that, and we want to, I guess, do our part to release only what is needed for the ecology, but not have the downstream impacts that the area has seen to date. But going back to monitoring, we are going to monitor that, and I believe that Walmart will be sharing that information with the city of Bentonville.
Does that also, what you talked about, really addressed quantity control and peak runoff rates, but for
Yes.
quality, have y'all done kind of baseline there? This being an infill project that's being redeveloped, or not so much infill, but redevelopment in a wiser way, to really be able to see and understand the water quality impacts of what you're doing here.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we have not. When we got onto the project, we did not do any monitoring of the water quality before design or construction started. We do know that Bentonville does not have a water quality code or requirement. And so we've been talking to Dan Weiss and other city engineers and reviewers about trying to implement some sort of water quality requirement. We've had some conversations about Town Branch Creek. There's a lot of development that's happening on Town Branch Creek right now. If you walk up and down Town Branch Creek, there's a lot, even though they're trying to protect it through, I would say, stormwater pollution measures. We all know that, stormwater pollution measures are only designed for smaller events, and anything that, over a 2-year event will overwhelm any stormwater pollution prevention and, put dirty water right into the creek. So trying to get a stormwater quality, a post construction stormwater quality requirement and a pre-construction stormwater water requirement and a post-construction. That's I think the key for this area, seeing that it doesn't have any today.
Other questions, comments?
Any engineers in the audience, we would love your help to speak to the city and reinforce that. It's needed.
The city is here in the room, so you're speaking to them. A lot of great LID features put into this redevelopment. In terms of the long-term maintenance, any plans that you all worked on or things that are going to take place in order to maintain these features and their functionality?
Yeah, so, and Jana can speak to this also, maintenance has been a priority from top to bottom. We don't want to design anything that they're either going to remove because it's a maintenance nightmare or it just costs so much to maintain. And we want to make sure that the maintenance is ease of access. That's why we did not want the lake to be the main BMP. A lot of developments will create this beautiful lake, but the lake becomes the BMP. It becomes the first and last line of defense before you release water back to the public. And so you see a lot of, just the oil sheens and the algae blooms, and it turns what was designed to be a very, very beautiful and nice lake, maybe even an interactive lake, to something a little bit more murky and it looks like a working lake versus an amenity. So the goal with our treatment systems is, to be able to gradually clean the water, but not overburden any one area with heavy maintenance. So, for example, going back to the bioswales, that 20 foot square area is the maintenance. Right on top of let me find it real quick. Right on top of where we're trying to infiltrate and filter out the first flush. This is where they're going to go and do the maintenance. They're going to go and just remove the topsoil or the shredded mulch, and then replace that first layer of biomedia. And that happens probably once every 5 years. And depending on how clean the water is when it gets there, how good the upstream controls are, the gravel, the filter strips, the side slopes, how we are able to reduce the velocity, the Gabion check dams. It's all a system to help clean the water, to help polish that water as it gets down to this biomedia. And then that's where the last bit of work, the heavy work, happens, and that's where the maintenance happens. So that's along all the roads, all the paved areas, the parking lots. So you go to the second treatment, the greenway. Well, that's just a vegetated line swale. There's really no biomedia in there. It's using length, is using velocity, is using disruption, is using elevation change, and all those pieces are natural. and we shouldn't have to do any maintenance other than, maybe in a 100-year storm, we may see some silt on the trail that they may want to sweep off. But other than that, we should not see a whole lot of maintenance needed as far as the BMP goes. Now, there's going to be landscape maintenance and things like that. But I believe, Jana, you'll speak to that in a second, so I'll give you a chance. And then the third system, the last system, lake. By the time the water gets to the lake, it's clean. And so now the only thing the lake is dealing with is what is draining directly to the lake. And before it gets to the lake, again, it goes through quite a lot of landscaping to filter out fertilizers, other pollutants that may happen, trash. Hopefully we'll partners around the public will be mindful of the trash and we won't see trash in the lake. But yeah, so that the systems work. And again, this is just one of the systems on the campus. There are other systems within the campus to help with the water quality. Jana?
Sure, thanks, Ted. Yeah, so I mean, from the planting perspective, it's definitely been a conversation throughout. I think it's a little daunting to think about going from primarily turf landscape to 100 acres or so of other types of plants. And so that's kind of been the question from Walmart's side is we're doing this shift so that they aren't mowing and fertilizing the campus as much, but that there will be investment in terms of needing to go through and weed so that the native shrubs and plants have a chance to establish. But once they fill in and grow, it's really more about seasonal cutting back and pruning, but kind of letting the plants do their thing. And we've been working to select planting that'll be tried and true and kind of the bulletproof plants. It's always a difficult thing because plants do what they want to do, but by relying on, like the carex and the sedges and the hardy grasses to do a lot of the work on the campus and try to minimize the amount of maintenance that Walmart's having to do with those plants.
Okay, thank you. Don, you have a question?
I have two questions. The first is on the 5-year maintenance that you described with the removal of the mulch and the high flow media. What will the failure look like if that does not occur, short-term and long-term? And then the second question is, you had talked earlier about using the water, holding the water to use the water. What, if any, secondary uses, non-potable, both on site and or in the buildings, is that water or other non-potable water being used for on the project?
Great question. So I'm going to talk about the non-potable water system first. So again, we are collecting all the water from the campus, both rainfall and developed water. And we're also collecting all the condensate water from the building that goes to the lakes. We've established a non-potable water system for the irrigation. So there's a pump system at both the North and South Lake that balances the pressure between the lakes. It's a pressure sensing system. So as the irrigation, as a zone needs to be irrigated, it'll come on, the system will sense the pressure and it'll pull from the lake, whichever lake that is closest to or whichever lake that has water. So the secondary use for the water is the irrigation. We do have some maintenance uses. There's some hose bibs also connected to the irrigation system to allow them to use for maintenance, cleaning sidewalks, doing some additional hand watering, things like that. Our hope at the beginning was to really make use of all the water. We wanted to use it for fire water and for full maintenance of the building, but there was some roadblocks on that, so we ended up with just the irrigation and some minor maintenance. As far as the maintenance, what happens to the biofiltration or these focal points if it's not maintained? Not a whole lot. I mean, we will hold some water, but we have secondary access points that is designed for the larger storm event or if this area gets clogged. You may see a little bit more residential water holding within the swales. But again, it should not, you won't see a failure, or you won't see an overtopping of the swale, and then the water coming out of the banks and on the streets or in the parking lot because of the secondary overflow that we have.
Time for one last question, if you have one. All right, Ted, Jana, thank you so much. It's great that you could join us remotely. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. We really enjoyed it, and really look forward to seeing what happens in the future with this.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you all.